when the new core music program would launch, they'd end up doing the same sort of thing. They'd have like a 45-minute beginner band time once a week to teach kids to play, because that works with Oak Brook Terrace kids. Like those kids somehow, they grow up, they learn how to play. But the trouble is, if you launch that in a place that doesn't have the ecosystem, like all those kids at Oak Brook Terrace, like they are grown up, go into the core, their parents play in the band. Like the ability to teach a kid to play and get them through beginner stage, through intermediate, and into a place where they can play in the youth band is easy, right? They are bound to succeed. Even with almost bad instruction, they could succeed because they've just got all this extra network of support. And if you're at a core and in a place that just doesn't have an adult band, doesn't have adults who can play, doesn't have families who are just going to make sure their kids are there and prioritize it, and don't have parents who can teach at home. And now, this is again something Harold did a really great work in, is actually taking some good thinking about music education and applying it to the Salvation Army. Like, you cannot teach a kid to play a brass instrument effectively on 45 minutes a week. Like, anyone who is a music educator in the school system would laugh at you to make this attempt. Right now, we've got some other resources, but it's really hard. Like, so to duplicate this thing is to try to just match the program of a place that's not you and just put it into place in your space is just like most likely destined to fail. You just don't have that ecosystem, right? So this is what they end up doing. They end up modeling this. At Eastern Territorial, they'll model the Spring Valley or what's the Montclair. They'll model some other core, and they'll try to put that into practice, and it just usually doesn't work. Anyway, that's how the vision starts, and then this moment happens. It's happened in hundreds of core every year across the country. Is the core officer will stand up in that pulpit that day. Those kids play hot cross buns in church, and they go, what you're looking at right here is the future of the what you like core band. This is our future. Like, these kids are going to grow, and we're going to have a core band, and everyone is so excited and eager. And this beginning is just like, it's like there's nothing easier to do in Salvation Army music than start beginners. And you can be full of optimism. It's just you get them started, they're excited. It's just super, super great. So you launch the program. Launching, again, a beginner program is easy. You really only need one room, one teacher, and a handful of instruments.
2 teachers.
You don't need two teachers. You need 2 adults. Right?
She's the safer part.
Yeah. But you need 1 teacher. You need 2 adults. You don't need much. And it's pretty simple. Like, week 1, all the kids are in the exact same place.
It's okay.
You just need
1 teacher, 2 adults. I'm belligerent. If Cheryl knows anything about me, she was my babysitter when I was 8 and 9 years old. And I was the most belligerent child you've ever worked with?
No.
Oh, I'm almost heartbroken.
No, but out of the 4, yes.
Yeah.
Oh! I don't know.
Yeah.
DJ
I was pretty belligerent. Anyway, I remember you having a moment with DJ. Anyway, this is really easy, and it's not that that's not good, but you can launch kids, and it's the simplest moment of any music program, because they're all at the same level, they all know the same thing, and you can manage all of their needs in one space appropriately. And again, like you just don't need much. You literally need a couple of horns, and you got yourself a class. But the students start advancing at different rates. This happens immediately. One of the kids can buzz and make a beautiful sound. Right off the bat, you never have to say anything to them. And one of them takes days of using all of the tricks, of trying to get their lips to vibrate when they blow through. And they got the thing the marks right away. You know you're going to have a tough time. That kid opens up the horn, they go, and they start like trying to hum into it. And you're like, okay, it's one of these. And like, we're going to be at it. So they start advancing at different rates, which isn't too big of a problem initially. So the kids just quit, right? Now, and again, at some of the biggest core, like when you're growing up with families, like Andrew Bell's kids aren't quitting. Not day 1, not day 2. They're sticking it out, right? The parents, we know what it takes to be committed for something to work. But a lot of the kids we work with don't, right? A lot of the people we work with don't know what it takes. And they you get the really frustrating experience with the parents like, Jimmy can't come to band today because he misbehaved at school. And you're like, you can't don't discipline your kids by making them fail on a commitment. This is a disaster. But you can't can't do it. So natural attrition occurs. So those 4 or 5 kids that started, 8 kids, 10 kids that started, in the best case scenario is never going to be 10 kids a year later, right? So you have some natural attrition occurs, kids are advancing at different rates. What then ends up happening in a music or arts program is you have ever increasing degrees of complexity, and they only keep getting worse. In year 2, now you're probably starting more beginners. Well, you started with 10 kids, 4 of them have probably left, if you're doing great, right? You've got 6 kids left. Some of them went to music camp or conservatory. Some of them are playing at school. Some of them are flying. And some of them still are struggling to play hot cross buns, and they're looking at a buddy's valves, right? And they're in 2 completely different levels. On top of that, you've got new beginners in. Now, how many teachers we need? We've got 4, 6. I mean, 4 at the very least. Yeah, you've got to have more. You've got to have more. Your program just got harder. It just got harder, right? There are various levels. New students enroll. You need more teachers. You need more space. Maybe you need more time. It's like everything gets trickier, and it starts bearing down on you. Sometimes, and this is a real problem that can happen, is we think that we have to offer everything they offer at CMI at our core. And so we're like, okay, we've got a band program, and we've got a choral program. Now we also have to do timbrels, and we got to do this. Now we've got a set of kids, and now we're pulling them in different directions. We're trying to do too much. We're trying to squeeze it into a time that makes. Do you guys know the term pedagogy? It's my favorite word.
Yeah.
Pedagogy is the art of teaching, right? And it's fun because it uses a different sort of place on your lips and tongue for each syllable. Pedagogy. So then you can also say it really fast. Pedagogy, 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 pedagogy. It's a fun word. Love it. Anyway, like we're starting to teach them so many things, there's no way we can do good at anything. So just a little side note, like your core doesn't have to offer everything. And if your core doesn't have a band, there's nothing wrong with your core. And if your core has a band and you don't do drama, there's nothing wrong with your core, right? Just a little side note. You don't have to do more than you can do well, and you don't have to offer everything. We don't have a requirement to offer everything. A little side note, we do have a requirement, I think, as a Salvation Army, to allow everyone who has got a gift in our community to use them for the glory of God and for His kingdom. We don't have a responsibility to teach it. That makes sense? If someone in your core plays a saxophone and you won't let them use it, then I feel like you might be stifling the spirit in some way. You have no obligation to teach a saxophone if you can't teach the saxophone. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to stifle gifts, and it's another thing to be like, I can't help you there, but good Lord, if you can do it, we're going to celebrate it and put it to use. So just, new programs get offered. And the rising frustration leads to increased intention. Sometimes it's your best students leave because they're not engaged anymore. Sometimes the worst students leave and they want to do something else. And it can just create this rolling snowball that's just building with complexity. Well, Jenna doesn't want to play a brass instrument anymore. Now she wants to do piano. Now we've got to find a piano teacher. Now we've got to find a space for her to take piano. And well, they don't really like band. They want to do drama, or they want to do we get this thing where all of a sudden we have so much complexity, the program's just going to burst under its weight. Then we have the exodus, right? If your program is built on officers, I love officers, and I have a high respect for officers, and I won't tolerate people trashing off. I can't tolerate trashing officers, right? But they're going to leave. They're going to move away. The DMD has to also help other corps. The assistant DMD, they can't be there forever, so they leave, right? And so a new officer comes in, and this is one of the saddest things that happens to me in the Salvation Army is we'll trash people who come. We'll trash an officer, a new leader who comes, or a new DMD or something else. It'll be like, our program died because it was their fault. New person came and they didn't care. It's really easy to blame someone else, even though the program was kind of going to crash under its own weight at some point anyway, depending on how we built it. So visionary leaders change, talented students depart. All right, and here's even if you started, and this is the case in Michigan, it's the case in most places, in the Midwest and other places, most people leave home. Most people leave home. I think about this, how many people has the Dearborn High School effectively discipled and nurtured and taught over the years? And how many of them stayed in Dearborn Heights? Not many, right? And for anyone to suggest that this really great godly work, and some of them have, and the fact that you still have programs, an amazing gift. But I think about kids I knew growing up in that core who were such good, godly, faithful people. And all my friends that were from the Dearborn High School have moved to other places. And that's just that's like, there's nothing you can do about that. People move away. People go. Simon's in New York now, right? They leave, and it's going to happen. So even if you started with 10 kids on that first Sunday where everyone was so excited, and you grow and they grow up, and you did everything awesome, you still may not have a program. Because they're gone. Now, that doesn't mean anything bad has happened. It doesn't mean anything bad has happened in those kids' lives. But it's just like this reality that we've just got to realize. I think about the what used to be the Crondelet Corps, or what is it, the Gateway Corps. Man, what a faithful job they've done. The Chicago Staff Band couldn't exist.
We went to play once there, and I said, can all the people who grew up in the youth band at this quarter say it was half the band?
Yeah, and how many of them stayed? None of them. Right? And like, what a gift. And this is the other thing, and this is less the case here in Michigan than in some places. Like, if you want to get me angry, like, be at a THQ Corps and tell me how to do everything, how to make a band program work. I'm like, you didn't teach anyone in your band. Like, your core band exists from kids from Flint and Dearborn Heights and Royal Oak and Gateway and all of these other places. And it's like, and yet, like, oftentimes we'll want to duplicate the programs we see in those places, even though the ecosystems are just entirely different. And some of it, there's just like, we have almost no control over. It's not just that, it's also just going away to college for other things. There's sports in high school. Like, the kids leave and the attrition accelerates. You've got a few kids who are hanging on, and they're hanging on for something. They're hanging on for youth band, divisional youth band. They're hanging on for this thing or that thing. And the next thing that happens is they move out and it dies. And the instruments go back in the closet, right? And we're back in the closet. And some other visionary leader comes, 3 officers later, 2 DMDs later. They find the instruments in the closet. And the cycle begins, right? And it's like, not the end of the world, or like, again, people have been discipled, people have been evangelized, God is glorified. We don't need to begrudge that work. But if we think about the ministry of that core, that unit, it gets it's sad. Like, it's hard to find, every time you find that closet of instruments, there's a little bit in me that rejoices and a little bit, like 2 parts of me rejoice. One, good things happened. Boom, resources are available. But man, it stopped. It's a little sad, right? And again, new leaders arrive. And this makes it seem really definitely terrible. And it's kind of like a part of the deal. Because I don't think it has to be what we are conditioned toward. This doesn't have to be the result. And we know it's not the result. We see examples of places that have defied it, despite of unimaginable, like, urban decline in some places, right? All right. So 3 common problems: instability in leadership. We just have to acknowledge it. So, like, this is often be the case, particularly if it's a program built by officers. If you're an officer, it should never discourage you from starting the program. That's why one thing I'm always like, just because you're like, it can start with an officer. Anyway, but if we're over dependent on officers and divisional staff, the program is likely going to fail as a long-term regenerating program. 2, inadequate support and advanced planning. This is something we can manage a little bit more closely. Oftentimes, we end up starting a program without ever thinking about year 2 and 3. And sometimes this means maybe we don't need a band program at this church. Like, it might be like, they don't even have space for a band on Sunday morning. They don't have classrooms to have 2 classrooms. Or if we do a music program, we have to think about it in a different way. Like, all of our buildings, all of our regions, our community networks, they're all different, and they might require a different sort of program. So anyway, sometimes we just don't plan appropriately, and we're just simply not prepared for years 2 through 5. We just jump in and we go, we're going to start a music program. Hear me out, you don't have to have all of the problems that years 2 through 5 present to keep you from starting year 1. You don't have to have everything solved, but you should think ahead, you should think about it. And then the last one is inappropriate models for program design. Like, we just are modeling things that are not the same as ours. We've got to create a solution that's appropriate to the missional needs of our space and to where we are, right? So, yeah, there's a big deal. Now here's the good news. I don't think that's the end. So I've moved to a happier AI background here. Creating this made me real, like, you can see all the problems with AI. Like, AI is inherently particularly, like, racist and problematic in a number of ways. So it's like, I'd be like, give me a happy group of Salvation Army musicians and it's like all white people. I'm like, well, give me a happy diverse group, and then a diverse group, all black people. And it's like, give me. I'm like, okay, I'm just anyway. So if you look too closely at this one, you'll find people with 3 or 4 arms. You start working real hard. Anyway, just behind it, see, it's just supposed to be happy colors, not death, is our goal here. So we're going to look at a contrasting model here, a contrasting set of circumstances, and see how it could be applied, maybe some solutions. And I'd be real curious as we go through, because some of you exist in regenerated Salvation Army music programs. So just like before, we have to have a vision, but our vision might need to be a little different. And here's maybe the single most important issue. In order to have a regenerating program in a local community, you need to have an invested, highly motivated local leader with local ties who's not leaving. Right? If it's going to survive, if we have any real practical hope of it surviving long term, that's what we need. Again, I don't think this should keep someone, a DMD or a Corps officer who moves into an area, should keep you from starting something. But it should be task one, is finding a highly motivated local leader who's not going away, who's going to stay and be around. Like, that is the single most important piece of success. Is like, how long have you been doing music programs at Royal Oak, Doug?
Since high school.
Since high school. So 20 years ago.
83, 15 years.
Yeah, 10 years ago, right?
83.
It's the year I was born.
Yeah.
So 42 years, right? That's a long time. And like, no officer can duplicate that. No DMD can duplicate.
Although they've tried.
They've tried. You cannot duplicate that. The other thing is this, and this is one that we often mention, like, have you shared, and do you have a shared vision with the rest of the Corps? Because one thing is, if it's just one person and everyone else isn't, or other people aren't on board, even one local person is probably not enough. Certainly not enough to do safe from harm, right, Cheryl?
Right.
Right? Is it safe from harm in Central Territory?
Yeah.
In the Eastern Territory, we're keep safe.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, like, you've got, I've had to do all of them. I have to do the West, I've got to do the South.
So annoying, I go to start living and take another.
Exactly right. Harold and I share some of these same experiences. I'm a master of the online course. Do you even watch them, or do you just go jump right to the answers? I jump right to the answers to see
I
if I
got to
can do them.
Kansas this summer and I had to retake safe from harm. Like, hello. I'm so angry.
Anyway, oftentimes this will happen. Often it can happen with Corps officers. They'll come in, they'll have a vision for something, but if the Corps doesn't agree, if you can't get the people in your Corps along with the vision, then you have a problem. Some of the single best Corps music programs with kids that I've seen have to do with like one teacher and one adult who's like, I can't do it, but I'll help. And I'm going to learn to play cornet with these kids, and a little bit of magic can happen. Just getting other people in the congregation, the more people who believe in the vision of what you're doing, we're going to use music and arts to disciple our people to be more like Jesus, and help more people to hear about Jesus and bring more people into a relationship with them. The more people who buy into that vision, the more likely the success is going to be lasting, right? The deeper the roots, the broader the roots. The other thing is, too often, and hear me out, this is one I think we often overlook in the Salvation Army, too often we build music programs for our ends only. And we think, man, wouldn't it be nice to have a great band? Man, wouldn't it be nice to have a drama program that could be awesome? Wouldn't it be great? I know this was me as a young adult, as a young man, as I'm like, man, I'd love to have a Corps that was better than, man, I'd love if my Corps band was so good. Wouldn't it be awesome? In retrospect, I did a lot of good work during those times, but a lot of my ends were still selfishly motivated. Like, I wanted to be a great director. I wanted to have a good music program on my Corps. Wouldn't it be fun if we could play awesome pieces and do cool stuff? But if you want your vision to be better and have a better, longer lasting goal, is like, how can we serve the community and how can we benefit our community? How can we be integrated into our community? That's a richer vision than us just having this thing just for us. And it increases the stakeholders. The more people, it increases your market, increases how many people can participate in your program. So this is a vision, I think, sorry, jump ahead, maybe two. This is a vision I think is a little better than like just having a band or an arts program at our Corps, right? How can we connect it to local people? How can we be meaningful in our community? How can we also benefit from our community? A little historical side note, we often tell the wrong story about how Salvation Army bands and music programs begin. And I already shared a part of it earlier too. I shared this bit, which is like, Oh, it was like these two guys in Buffalo were drunk, so they gave them cornets. We tell the story of teaching kids to play instruments, and we're gonna share this. If you do an actual look at where Salvation Army music programs exist and where they've been the generation over generating, they don't usually start this way. And the really sad thing is, there's almost no example of an adult core band in this country that existed and grew from children's music programs.
You're talking about this period you studied, or you talking?
In my dissertation, but also beyond. I've looked beyond that time period as well. It's not entirely there's an example of it right now in the Westbury Corps in New York.
Yeah.
I love those kids so much, but and it starts with those kids. But there's an adult, a local person, who
Junior Reuben.
you talk to all those people, man, Junior, but he wasn't. He's what people told me, he's not that great a musician. He's not the world's greatest player, but he stayed. He was faithful. He was committed. The congregation caught the vision. These kids started, and they've stayed. They have the benefit of being in New York. People don't like to leave New York, despite Chris's presence here. It's hard to get a lot of people out of New York. Hard to get people out of New York. So that's an example. There's a few other examples, but almost none of where you can say here's a core band that is now, and that's still young. That it can survive into adulthood. Is I believe in it, but not yet proven. They're college students now, kids, right? But there aren't many examples of that thing. The actual example of where most Salvation Army bands that have existed and maintained in this country began were from people who already played, who already knew how to play instruments. And the part that gets overlooked is often is people in our communities, in community bands, in American brass bands in the late 19th century who joined up. That was the story of the East Liverpool band in Ohio, which was actually the first Salvation Army band in America. But
That was you.
Grand Rapids is my favorite, and it's absolutely the second. Anyway, but it's getting people in your region who could play. A cool story is Charles Ives, a famous American composer. His dad was hired by the Salvation Army to teach people to play in Danbury, Connecticut. It's these connection to local music institutions and people who played in the local brass bands, the local town band, who joined up. So hearing this stuff about the Ann Arbor Corps and all of you who are involved in community music in your region, that's a much better sign for long-term success than 10 kids. Hear me out, we should be teaching 10 kids. I'm not anti-children's music programs, but it's adults who can play who join our bands. And that's the story of in places like Flint and Dearborn Heights, Detroit Citadel, and others. It was that plus some folks from the UK. But also in my research, it's less people coming from the UK and joining our bands than people in our communities joining our bands. Adults in our communities that joined our bands. So that's a huge part. That local connection and ties are just vibrant. Number two, you've got to plan ahead and think years 2 through 5. What can your program sustain and manage, right? There are two basic kinds of Salvation Army music programs, and this is oversimplifying, but one of them is outreach and evangelical, and they call it a wide net. Bringing in a bunch of kids and working with a bunch of kids and getting them in, and you hopefully wean a few off that stay committed. The other kind is you're teaching the kids who are already in your core to play, and there are about 1 billion variations within. But you can have, and you just have to decide: is our building small? Do we have limited resources? Well, we might not be able to have a wide net program. I was a core music director in the Lexington Corps, and I got a $30,000 grant to buy new instruments, and we had a big facility, and I had 80 kids in our brass band program. And it was a wide net program. We had a youth band of 30. And now of those, most of those have left the Salvation Army. It was not the retention rate on that's not great. There's some DMDs around this country who came in through our band who wouldn't have otherwise been. There's actually someone, did anyone ever engage with Clay Gonzalez, who's around this area? There's a kid from our band who came up and he did some stuff in the Army in the area 15, 20 years ago. He went to the University of Michigan to the composition. Anyway, examples of people coming into the Army and using it, but we had resources to have a wide net. But there's some places you got a small building and you can only have 10 people. Well, you don't need to teach the whole world to play. You don't need to teach everyone to do. You don't need a giant drama. What can we sustain? And then plan and build a program that might work towards that sustainment. So thinking about what does that happen? How can we build a sustainable program? What needs are we going to have, and how do we start building networks for those needs now? Like if you're in a new place and there aren't resources in your core to have a music program, you had better find some local musicians who you can connect with and start building relationships with. You better, or else it's not going to be able, you're going to need more teachers next year. How do you help people catch the vision? I used to take out ads on this when Craigslist was less creepy. I used to take out ads on Craigslist. I used to go around to all the music stores and put up flyers, just to get instruments. Do you have an instrument you need to get rid of? And I would take anything. I'd take violas, and then I would sell them to buy more cornets. You know what I mean? It's what are the
That's where you
resources?
went wrong, that's why you didn't retain anybody.
I'll love to talk to you later. I'll talk to you later. We did have a lot of good retention. I'll talk to you later about the Salvation Army really made a push for string orchestras.
We have, and we're in year 4.
There's an awesome. So the founder of Salvation Army Music is a violinist, right? Richard Slater is a violinist, and side note, he was a big Wagnerian. He named his kids Siegfried and Brunhilde.
Don't do that to your
But the Salvation Army publishes string tutors in the early 20th century because they recognized the problem that maybe you have realized at your course some point. Sometimes the band's loud inside.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if we had a quieter ensemble for inside? Anyway.
We can hear ourselves.
So just deciding in advance, and one of them is not better than the other. And sometimes in the Army, we devalue discipleship. It is all right if your music program is discipleship and not outreach, if that's the best way for your program to be sustainable and what your community needs. If you've got some families at your church who've got kids who are growing up and coming in, you don't need, if you can't sustain 80 people, and this is a problem with the program that I've had, is if you can't sustain it, you just think ahead a little bit. And this, another vital and a huge piece that people don't think about when they look at the ecosystems of places that succeed is the engagement of adults. You have to, if you're going to have kids programs, it's never going to succeed if it's just kids. You have to include adults in your program, or else it will not be lasting. The study, any study in overlooked Salvation Army resources and tradition would suggest that. Students will leave. They're going to go to college. They're going to go away. They may come back. They may not come back. They're going to go. Kids are going to leave. We need adults around. Like I mentioned before, strong senior bands grow before youth bands. You almost will never, it is almost not a thing that's ever happened, that a strong adult band grew out of kids' bands. But throughout the history of the Salvation Army, we can see strong youth bands that grew because adult bands existed. And so, if we just take that reality and go, one of the first steps we need to have adults who can play. Another just basic misnomer is that kids learn better than adults or learn more quickly than adults. Kids do not learn more quickly than adults learn. Kids learn more slowly than adults learn. Kids have more neuroplasticity and can go farther. If you have an adult in your church who doesn't play an instrument, you can teach them to play an instrument faster than you can teach a kid to play an instrument. They will never be very good, the adult. They're never going to be great. A little kid can become great one day because kids have a superpower. Do you know what the superpower that children have is? Time, neuroplasticity. There's a better one.
Imagination?
Nope. Yes.
Dang it!
Yes, but there's an even greater superpower that adults lack. Yes. The ability to sound terrible and keep playing.
Yes!
A kid can sound bad for years and still play. An adult is very aware of how bad they sound. So a superpower of kids is that they can sound bad. An adult is embarrassed playing hot cross buttons in front of the church and the kid will clean. Right? But adults can learn very quickly the frustrations you have teaching kids about remembering what D is and what it looks like on the staff, an adult can learn in one day. And remember and retain. And there's multiple ways we can do this. One, there are more historical examples in the Salvation Army of adults learning how to play and creating a senior band than there are of children learning to play and staying in their core and becoming a senior band. So if you want to have music programs in your core, if you want to start a music program in your core, you need to have adults. And sometimes, this is a thing I stumbled into as a 16-year-old, is I had an educator who was retired, who was coming to our church and chose to help me because of Save from Harm, to come in and be in our beginning band class. And he learned how to play. And he actually could teach kids, and I couldn't. I just knew how to play a horn. Right? So even if it's just adults sitting in with kids, including adults in our program and convincing, again, if you think back to the step one, vision, including other people in the congregation, if people in your congregation can get the vision of like, oh, we can have live music at our church. We can have a functioning drama program that presents daily, like weekly or every couple of weeks in our service. Adults can do that a lot more efficiently than kids can. And getting them involved is going to make the program more durable. So prioritize developing an adult group to create a more stable foundation. Well, how do you develop adult groups? You can teach adults to play, and then this other thing that we often overlook is there are people in our communities who play brass instruments and other instruments who are just looking for a place to belong. Are looking for a place to exist. And some of them are Christians and have never dreamed they could use the thing they learned in school for God's glory and for God's kingdom. And we don't ever ask them to play. We don't ever ask them to come around. And so prioritizing, finding a way, and it might be that it's not every week. Because what will not work, in my experience, is finding somebody who can play and says, would you like to come and join the Salvation Army and play in our band? Very rarely is that successful. What's really successful is saying like, hey, can you come this week? We need an extra cornet player. We need this. Can you come 1 week? Or what has been really effective at our core is, can you come help us teach kids? Oh, you play in the Lexington Brass Band. Could you come and help us with our beginning brass program? Remember that year 2 through 5? Like, oh, we don't have an intermediate band director. We don't have a kid. We don't have someone to teach these other kids. Well, can you find someone in your community that can come in and help along with an adult from our church? Right? And can you come and help us play? We can solve some of those problems by looking outside of just ourselves and making stronger bonds to our communities. So prioritizing like if you want kids, it's a pedagogic truth. If you want kids to get good at playing music, they have to hear people playing music. So putting together a group. Another thing that I would suggest in these communities around here is like we've got some core with bands. Well, how can your bands be a resource to core around you that don't have bands? Like, can you go? Like, is there a band? Is there someone who can help lead a group from someplace that's nearby? Can you invite to you, like if you're starting a new music program at a core, can you invite the Royal Oak Band, the Dearborn Heights Band, the Flint Band to come and play a concert at your core? Right? So that the kids can hear them play. You get networks of things that are bigger. Sometimes we just get so insularly focused that we don't think about the external resources that are there. And we're going to talk after our little break about some things that will apply maybe to more of us who have some core bands that are functioning, is how do we create intentional discipleship and how do we do some things that grow. Anyway, all right. There's a billion reasons to make excuses for including adults. It's always easier just to work with kids. Also note, it's always easier to work with just kids and not their parents, but often the very best thing if we're dealing with struggling communities is to help parents know Jesus too. So can you get the parents to come? Like, hey, you want your kid to be a part of this free program? Like, the ideal way to do that is for you to come and learn. Come and learn to play music with your kid, right? There's 1,000 reasons we can make excuses, because the easiest thing is just to get kids in a room and to start teaching them. But including adults, I think is just a vital step. All right, here's another thing that we don't do, and this is, I call it keep recruiting, but it's also just, again, creating these webs. I mentioned earlier, like, teaching kids to play on 45 minutes a week is pretty much impossible. It's not a reality. It doesn't work pedagogically. One thing we often do is we end up fighting with our school districts in Salvation Army music programs, and so often we get kids who are only playing at the core. One thing that you need to do if you've got kids learning to play and you can only teach them once a week, which is the reality, like we can't have a 5-day-a-week El Sistema style program in all of our core. We can't do this. Well, if you want your kids to be able to learn how to play, you know what you need to make sure they do? You need to make sure they sign up for band in whatever grade they start here. Do you know what I mean? You need to make sure the schools are helping teach, take advantage of the schools helping teach your kids to play. And the other thing that's going to do is, this is the mistake we make, I think, often in the Salvation Army, is we want to serve people, but we miss the central principle of the Salvation Army at its most effective, which is not me helping you, but it's me inviting you to take the gospel to the world. It's not just for you, right? It's not just for the people I'm serving. I'm not just offering you a service to receive by providing you music instructions. I'm inviting you to join our mission, which is to bring the gospel to the whole world. Like a full gospel, like evangelism and discipleship and like growth, right? Like internally, personally, communally. And so when we have kids in our programs, they can't just be service recipients. They are also people helping recruit what's going on into the next level. Like, you are in your school band. There are kids at your school that can play, and they need to be here with us playing. And if you make connections to the local music directors, then like they want those kids to play in your band because you get their kids better too, right? And you start helping each other out. And so this is the deal, and what ends up happening, one of the solutions to the increasing levels of complexity is you get the kids who get good. They outpace everyone behind them. If you start a program with kids and only kids, and you start teaching them all from beginners, no one ever catches that kid. No one ever catches them. They can't ever catch them because the other ones are coming behind them. And so what you've got to do to have a program, or what I think you've got to do, is you've got to recruit to the level of your program. So if you start beginners, particularly if your core doesn't have all of the leaders, you don't have a requirement to start beginners every year. Like maybe you've got 10 kids at your church. You start them playing. Well, one thing you can do is as they progress, you don't need to necessarily always grow your program by just adding beginners. We often overlook the fact that our kids need to be in school declaring the gospel of Jesus to their friends and their neighbors. That's an odd thing to ask them to do. But it's pretty easy to go like, hey, will you come and play in band with me? And so recruiting to the level of your program is essential. And this I kind of stumbled on when I was at our core in Lexington. I was the core music director there. Is I had 2 kids that were above everybody else. And there was nothing for them. And we couldn't have a youth band because there's 2 kids. But it's like we needed to get, so I started taking my time and volunteering. I mean, I was getting paid from the core, but I volunteered at the poorest local high school, the one that didn't have a band booster program. And I taught like a brass sectional for them each week. We got 5 kids from those 2 kids' schools to come and play in our band. Well, those kids had friends. And all of a sudden we started having kids start coming from all the schools, the band. So we only had 2 kids from those beginners that I began with. But by the time they were in high school, we had a 35-piece youth band of kids from our community that had come in. And that enabled us to reach out to more people and bring them in. And it also enabled the kids that we had to have a better experience. And I think this is a place that we just often miss, is recruiting kids in our community that can play. Like you should be, like if you want to grow a music program in your community, be real present with your middle schools. Like find a way to like connect, like here's some kids that are just learning to play, and those teachers, in my experience, will bend over backwards to have their kids receive some extra free instruction. And sometimes if it's a poor school, just to give them a nicer cornet than they have an access to trumpet at their middle school, right? So recruiting this and encouraging our students to have catching that vision and the mission can be a huge piece. So recruiting people at the level. And those of you, this can sometimes happen at some of our bigger core too, is that we can get insular and forget that we can, like, just because we have people coming through that we might be able to reach out and get some other people around. And then this is something I had to learn through experience, is avoid over-recruiting beyond your capacity. Like sometimes I'm those of you who know my dad too, like I have energy and I have excitement, but sometimes you can make a terrible semester if you have more kids than you can effectively teach. Like it is not our job. Like we want to disciple everyone that God gives us to disciple. Remember I said like this: God gave us everything we need to do everything He's asked us to do. Sometimes we try to do more than God's asking us to do, and we get ourselves into a little bit of trouble. And a big part of that is also like limiting the number of offerings. I already mentioned that. You don't have to do everything at your core. And hear me out, like, and I think most are like, I know you're an artist, like, you don't have to have a band. Like, the Salvation Army, to effectively achieve its mission, does not have to have a brass band. Your core doesn't have to have a brass band to effectively do its job. Like, it doesn't. Like, I think it's foolish if there's a Salvation Army and you do have the resource, like, just the parable of the talents, right? We have all of these resources. Like, Chris can help your kids play the brass instrument. He can be a resource to you. In music camp can be a resource to those kids. And CMI can be a resource to those kids because we have all of the internal resourcing. Like if you have a kid that plays the saxophone, like Chris just can't help him unless you have more saxophone skills than I'm aware of, right?
Hidden talent.
Yeah.
More
Like no, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean we need to like shame a child who plays a woodwind instrument or a string instrument from being in our church. Like if we've got those gifts, if you've got a string quartet at your church and you won't let them use them, you won't let them play in church because Salvation Army uses brass bands. Can't help you. You've got some problems, right? You know, Flint Citadel used to have a famous saxophone quartet. 1930s. They had a famous, like all through all the Salvation Army publications, is the Flint saxophone quartet. We can be thankful that some things only last for a season, right? Good. Anyway. a huge vital point. And the last one is connect. We've talked about this. So if you're at a core, it's just recognizing what divisional and territorial resources are available to you. You're missing the mark if you don't realize that there are people who can help you. Like I know this because my sister was and her husband are officers in this division. I know how helpful Chris was. Like we've got some kids, I know Chris and his dad are there to help. Like if we ever needed them there, it's like Chris and the dad, Chris and Gordon, they'll be here to help. Right? There are resources, there are like people who have a knowledge base of what music is available. An unimaginable like trove of resources. Things that Doug Ingalls composed so that your kids can play with the senior band or an adult band on church on Sunday and feel really great. There's all sorts of good stuff. So you're taking advantage of them, but don't rely solely on them. Too often, people don't connect to other local resources available to them. And when we do that, we're sometimes just keeping people from being able to be a part of our vision and our mission. Like there might be a local high school band director who's alone. I mean, high school band directors are usually young, and they're lonely, and they're suffering, they're doing this hard job on their own, and like, they need Jesus too, and sometimes like they need an outlet, and like, how can we be a resource to them? That's not, and if we think about core and not just the Army, the Salvation Army's mission is not for the good of the Army, right? Salvation Army's mission is for the good of the kingdom, for the world. And like, we've got to have a vision bigger than just having the best core program at CMI or playing the best pieces. Like we've got to have a vision that's like, let's be vibrant in our community. Let's like, and if you look back at our history, look back at these core and the things that they do and how integrated they were into our neighborhoods, into our places. Well, the neighborhoods aren't the same as they used to be. People don't go to the street corner the same way they used to. But there's still things that happen. There's still things that are happening. There's still kids playing in marching bands like crazy. Like that we might be a resource to them. We might be an integral part of a community music and be a vibrant part of that. I think is really essential. We'll talk more about that in our next section. Does anyone have any questions about those two, the death cycle and the regenerative cycle?
I wonder,
Yeah.
could you go back, I think it's 3 slides? Keep going. Sorry. The one about the locals. Was that the first one?
Yeah. I think I have it.
I want to tell you that I witnessed in the East, anyway, I won't say, but no, keep going. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So, a divisional commander makes a decision that there will not be local officers at a music camp.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Wait, huh?
Right? Or I say, when I'm subbing for the fall with Gavin left, I say to the divisional secretary, the program secretary, these are the people you have to have, because when you're all gone, all of you, all 8 of you on this building, when you're gone, there's nothing for Edward and your DMD.
Yeah.
Right? So I witnessed this too much, whereas you're not talking about DHQ, and I am trashing DHQ.
Yeah.
Because I witnessed in this territory great corps officers, so many places,
Yeah.
working really hard, right? And local officers, like people in this room. But this just, I didn't see it coming, but this is after I left, of course.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow that. But I had people who had been at my camp for 30 years, not allowed to come.
Yeah.
And
Think
they
about,
totally knew the drill, and they were
Yeah.
gonna be there when the kids left camp.
and
that
they're
was
gonna make a
just-
sacrifice to be there too.
Of course.
Like, take
they're
their own
not-
vacation
Yeah, they're
time.
not on company time or any of that
Yeah.
stuff, right? So that was one that, caught me. The other thing is, of course, I was in Philly for 30 years, and the whole idea, we figured out, it took me a while, because, some of us grew up in church growth stuff, and we had to hear all that
Yeah.
stuff. We're not gonna replicate ourselves. It took me 10 years at least to figure out, I'm not gonna replicate myself at the Philadelphia Pioneer Corps, or New York or so, right? But I will say the byproduct was, yeah, they all moved up. Everybody's gonna move out of Kensington, it's infamous.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we were. And anybody that we worked with, they brought, which was totally a big net in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
they're gonna get out. Whether they get out, but they're not gonna stay at the Salvation Army, except
Yeah.
for, we have a slew of officers that came out of it.
Yeah.
But the idea was that it took me a long time to figure that out, because I thought if I teach these kids, I could record band, which I did a number of times.
Yeah. The cycle.
Right?
Yeah.
I started over. One time we lost like 35 young adults in one shot.
Yeah.
Right? Just the whole court, I had to start over. But the idea being, the idea of what you were saying was, it took me, I guess, a hard lesson, 10 years of it to figure out, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I need a bunch of bass players to play my core band,
Mhm.
and then I can have kids.
Yep.
Right, so I didn't know that. I'm just saying, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I'm
same.
confirming what you're saying, which is,
And it's the story. And again, you don't want to like crush people's vision when they start with kids. And again, there's nothing wrong with that story. And that's why a little caveat at the beginning of the destiny. There's nothing wrong with starting a bunch of kids and them getting out and like meeting Jesus and having a better life, and also like maybe just being faithful followers of Jesus, even at another church. Like the goal is not the Salvation Army. Like the vehicle is, right? And like, you know, I had to deal with this. I love the Salvation Army so much. At some point, I had to realize, like, would I be okay if God said, "Hey, we're gonna redeem the world. The Salvation Army's got to die." Like, would I take that deal? And as like I realized, like in that moment, I kind of made an idol of the Salvation Army, because I was like, I love this thing. And I don't think God has any intention for the Salvation Army to die. Like, but the goal is not us. The goal is the kingdom. And like where we're most effective is when like we're working for the kingdom. Like that's the goal, right? It's not for us. Like there's not going to be uniforms in heaven. I don't think.
Preach.
Right? I don't think God has a preference for brass bands. I do.
I might argue that one.
I do. I know. Right? Right? But it's like
Good music.
yeah. But it's like, I mean, I think it's when people, and I don't think we deal with this too much. I mean, we dealt with this more in the early 2000s. Like when you and I were young, there's like some adamant folks, like the brass band was always keeping the Salvation Army from doing any good. And it's like, what? I don't know what you're fighting. It's like, I don't know what battle you're fighting, but it's not the right one. Or if you've ever had anyone tell you, I mean, I've had people tell me this, like, yeah, kids don't like brass bands. I'm like, I've never had instruments left alone in the bin. Like, I have as many kids as there are instruments. Like there's just if you think that a band doesn't connect to children or that people aren't interested, I have actually right now. I've started we have a neighborhood brass band that just started with my daughters and their friends. They all like my daughter's playing, and they got this idea. They have a neighborhood brass band. So I've just got a little neighborhood brass band of 12 kids that are all beginners right now that just come over to my house. They come over to my house. They go into our sunroom, and they just come every day right now to come and play. And it's just like I'm just like watching football on a Sunday afternoon, and there's kids playing in my sunroom. I'm so happy. I was like pop out, be like, "Hey, you want a little help?" Sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. But I'm like, you've not tried. Any other questions? Has anyone seen this or experienced this, like this cycle? Right.
We walked into it when we walked into this court.
Yeah.
They didn't want any help. They thought they had the end all be all, and lo and behold, the director's older than dirt and can barely walk. And so but I'll say this: we have the spring program has been going for 4 years now. Chris doesn't let us come to camp. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, we need teachers.
You can't teach them. I've been the guest at a music camp, or I went to a music camp, and it was just, they had a kid playing the flute and a kid playing the saxophone. The saxophone was broken, and one kid on the cornet and a kid playing bass drum, and they're like, woohoo. And they're like, you're gonna be giving this kid lessons. I'm like, I can't help them. I can't help them. Like I'm not.
But what it's gonna say though is we do not allow. Every kid has to have a caregiver present to attend my program.
good.
Every kid has to pay to attend my program. The pay is different, varies on ability of pay, but it's set, and then if they need help, they have to see me. I have never once turned somebody away because they can't pay. But that gives them buy-in to come every single week because mom had or dad had to pay. The parents come and stay, and they will either sit in on the class or they're having fellowship time.
Yeah.
They're getting to know my other leaders. And we're teaching new leaders because we're in year 5. We probably only be there 3 or 4 more years before they kick us out. But devotions always happen the same time every week, and now people come and say, hey, can we just do devotions and not do the music program? And it's not that they don't want the music program, but that's the time we have. And the parents ask more questions about devotions than the kids. However, Last week I got a text from one of the moms where they went and saw the new David movie. And one of the kids goes, "Oh, we already know this, Major Brian already taught this to us." And she's like, "I didn't think they were ever listening." So you see how the parent involvement knew what was going on, they keep them coming. They come whether it's for music or for devotions, but it's that, those are the two pieces. It's either, well, band is on Thursday, strings on Monday, and choir. Strings and choir on Monday with devotions, or bands on Thursday with devotions. And the parents are there, always.
I was gonna piggyback off that to say that you could enlarge the adult thing you had, that anytime our kids perform, even if it was Sunday school, somebody from their household had to be there,
Yes.
right? That you require that, otherwise they're not on. We
Yeah.
had a mom show up with a black eye one time,
Yeah.
because of the requirement, but the point was like, to get an engagement.
Having somebody, like, if you're gonna teach kids arts, there has to be, there has to be a commitment and a buy-in.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, it can't, like, it's just not gonna succeed. Now, there's like, and again, like, and I think the Salvation Army program should always have the ability to have some exceptions, and a way to work, way to work around.
That's why it's a
but-
caregiver, because they're,
Yeah,
Sure,
mom and dad
sure.
have to work.
Sure.
Yeah, but each place is different, and each, like, you have to build those to your community. Often, like, we don't ask enough, so people don't come because we don't ask. And again, like, I mean, this is like learning from my own mistakes. I mean, there's some kids that I worked with, and I like knew their families, but didn't ask them to come. There's one that's like been really beautiful, like 20 years later, like the mom's coming now, the kids are grown up. But I didn't ask enough as a young leader. I was so eager to have kids that I just like, I had a vision for discipling and evangelizing these kids, but I didn't have a vision for discipling and evangelizing the parents. And I just like, it wasn't like I was doing something bad or wrong, but there's a smaller vision and the less healthy one, the one that could be, which is like, what really transformed these kids' lives is if they're like mom and dad, or mom came to know Jesus too. So we've been really effective at our core in the last few years, just having parents and like parents of these kids that have come, and it's like so beautiful.
Well, one of the weird
And
things
messy.
is we had all these siblings that were too little to do anything. And so we started mom and toddler singing time,
Yeah.
or we call it toddler tunes.
Yeah.
And the number one reason toddler tunes works is because the moms are desperate for friends, or dads. I keep saying moms.
Toddler tunes is never successful, just toddlers.
Oh, no, it should be called, Torture Katrina time, because it's complete chaos. But the parents get to make friends, and then they stay, and their kids are just like so happy, and they're just talking.
I've been at my core 20 years now. I've got a girl in college that I used to do toddler singing with. It's like that sort of like seeing kids that long is like, oh,
My Spotify list also.
she's my tuba player now.
Just to crib off the idea of engagement, the singing company that we do at the Washington Court had a tough kickoff, but to emphasize the importance of engagement, as soon as the kids had a say in various things that we did, like they might not be selecting the repertoire that we're performing, but as soon as they were able to chip in, contribute their ideas, and know that they were heard and that their opinion was valued, all of a sudden we had this huge buy-in. And when we went to do our showcase, we didn't do like a full-blown performance, but when we went to do our showcase, like what Katrina was saying, their parents showed up and they were up out of their seats, dancing all over the chapel. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And if the kids decided they wanted to ask questions about music theory for half of rehearsal, which actually happened. I mean, like 8-year-olds asking music theory questions. It was great. So we taught, I taught them music theory for half of rehearsal, and we just postponed what was gonna be taught that day to the next rehearsal. But it's for them to be able to chip in and feel heard, like their input's valued because it's their ensemble too, has made the world of a difference. I mean, we had kids who like wouldn't sit still, they'd be playing with their paper the whole time.
And if you can convince them to have an idea or a vision for a mission, like, so, okay, so we're doing this and we've got some buy-in, like, where can we take our group that people need to hear about Jesus?
Oh, totally.
And if you can get them, again, one tragedy I often see is like, when core get really insular, they're only doing things for themselves because the open air doesn't work anymore, and I'm not saying you have to go out to the open air. It's like, if you're only performing in your building, it's gonna be hard to keep your band engaged and getting better. Like, you've gotta have something that's going, what are we working towards? What are we doing? Like, we've gotta be taking this out somewhere. So, anyway, we have blown past our time for our coffee break, but I've got the next session 2. So we wanna take a coffee break now, and we're maybe 15 minutes late for it. We can start next week, so we're late. when there was a lot of folks in the Salvation Army that really wanted to just like bash Salvation Army music and bands. Like there was a time when it was like, oh, bands, that's old and passe and not cool, and we need to be doing things that are more like this. We need to be hipper, we need to be cooler. Bands aren't cool, and I felt like I got that all the time as a kid, and it's like almost you're branded as a band kid or not a band kid. It just wasn't healthy and it wasn't good. And I think particularly during that time, we didn't acknowledge, like people would be like, oh, that old band that they come every week, they play the same old music. Like you realize those folks have been walking with Jesus together faithfully for 30 years, for 40 years. And there's a reason, like it's one of the reasons that like so much of the Salvation Army seemed to be kind of band-centric to some of these other folks, was that those people stayed because they were being effectively discipled in a nurturing community that was like deeply woven together as a community that was bonded together. And there's a time that we just didn't acknowledge that was a beautiful thing. So this presentation is really about how do we really intentionally disciple and use our music groups to disciple and accomplish the mission of the Salvation Army, and to build healthy churches. And that's something that if you're around the Salvation Army at all, you will recognize in a very broad spectrum, looking at the broad perspective of the Salvation Army, we don't have a lot of healthy, rigorous, durable churches. Like a lot of them are, like the average size of a Salvation Army congregation I think is around 20. Right? And that's nothing against the core that are 20, but it's hard to be a rigorous and rugged and durable congregation. And again, this is not anti-officers, but like you're going to have some officers that may not be the best, that may not click well with your congregation, or your congregation may not be a good fit for them. And to be a rugged congregation that can endure an officer that doesn't work well with you, there aren't many. We don't have many that can endure that. And there are a handful in this room that we're really grateful for. All right, so 2 just quick truths. The Salvation Army mission and the mission of our arts programs is the same. They should be indistinguishable. Sometimes every once in a while you have like the Southern Territory a few years ago had their own mission statement for music. And it wasn't bad, it wasn't poorly intended, and none of the people were bad. But it's like our goal is to have all live music in all our core by the year 2020. Is that your goal too?
That was our goal.
Okay,
In
awesome.
Central.
Yeah.
The same goal in the South. And the goal is it's good to have goals, and those are certainly good to achieve. But that is not the mission. The mission of music programs is indistinguishable from the mission of the Salvation Army. It's to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human needs in his name without discrimination. That is the mission. We can't change it. No matter what you do, that's the mission of the Salvation Army. We're part of the Salvation Army, and we're trying to accomplish the same thing. So I believe that to be true. I should have put that up there earlier. And then this one, which is a little harder truth, is that I don't think a healthy arts program can exist in the core with an unhealthy congregation. Like if we want to have healthy music programs that are effectively doing those things, we need healthy congregations. And this is a cart and a horse issue, right? I don't think that we have to be condemned to saying like, well, we don't have a healthy congregation, therefore we shouldn't attempt to do anything with arts and music or accomplish the mission using these things. No, but they should build themselves together. And likely, if your core is like mine, there have been some times where there have been points of healthy agreement and good working together, and there might be some points where there's some tensions. But anyway, that ideally, this is the case. Healthy arts programs need a healthy congregation. And I think if you find throughout the history of the Salvation Army, the places where we've had healthy music and arts groups, and that doesn't just mean thriving good ensembles. There have been places, for instance, there was a time, Harold might know more about this, but the Cambridge Silver Band, there's a time, a pretty excellent ensemble that may not have been a healthy congregation. I would suggest it may not have been a healthy ensemble either, but again, I may not know enough about it to speak, but.
Let's say it's not Exhibit A.
Not Exhibit A, not Exhibit A. I only know just enough to reference it. But I can think of some examples of some places in my life in this territory where I've maybe that hasn't always been the case. So here's some questions for you. How do music and arts programs accomplish the mission of the Salvation Army? Non-rhetorical, real question.
Brings people in.
Brings
Attracts
people in,
people.
attracts people. And again, people again will tell you, oh, bands don't attract people like they used to. I'm like, again, I don't think you've tried because I've never had trouble, never really had trouble attracting folks.
And I love to share a story.
If it's a quick story, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have a thing in Grand Rapids called Art Prize, and our core is now a venue for that.
Awesome.
And because I had a painting there, I was able to talk with several people How does that accomplish the mission of the Salvation Army, even from like a creative arts standpoint? I think it brings in these giant ideas and makes them tangible,
Yeah.
which is something that I try to do with what I do, because I think ideas, like these large theological ideas, aren't always the most tangible, and
Yeah.
you can see that in how Jesus talked.
Yeah, so it's like even using a visual image to literally
Oh,
tell the
yeah.
gospel. And then,
my mom can tell you about the sermons that I've done and how there's art or pop culture already put in there. So
yeah,
Yeah.
but it also connects, like it
connects.
visually tells it, and then it brings an audience in to tell the gospel. Great,
oh yeah,
awesome. How else?
Well, I've never had a student that can't do music, and we have nonverbal autistic, we
Yeah.
have Down
Yes.
syndrome, we have black, we have white, we have Mexican, and the language that music speaks is the same.
Yeah, and this is also like just the meeting human needs bit too,
Yeah.
which is like, particularly in a world that's becoming less physical and more detached, like to make music together, to be in a real community is a need people have. To go give them a chance to meet that need and preach the gospel together. It's pretty unique and special.
Yeah, I think speaking to how it meets human need in the name of Jesus, with music we're able to foster for people, youth and adults, a sense of community and fellowship, and also bring them a sense of joy, which I just did I really don't know my references that well. But there's a passage in Nehemiah 8:10 that says, "Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." And so when we can bring people joy through our different offerings, we can bring them the strength of God.
You spend some time in Nehemiah is a really great place to think about building a program and building something. Like Nehemiah is coming back to rebuild the walls, and like thinking about that practically in some spaces like I almost did the devotional this morning just from Nehemiah, but just thinking about some places we have broken walls, we've got crumbled buildings, we've got crumbled things, and that God can bring life again to those new places, and it requires someone like Nehemiah. And that story, it's a little project I like to do. Like sometimes it's just when I'm mentoring students too, and if they're in a difficult life situation, I'll be like, all right, 5 years from now, imagine your life's going exactly as you want it to go. Write the story of how it got there. Was it all easy? Were there pitfalls? There are challenges along the way? It's like, so you gotta recognize you're in the middle of something, and when challenges come, you can't let them deter you. And in like Nehemiah, they were rebuilding those walls in Jerusalem. But you've got all of the characters and all these people outside the walls who are attacking. It's like, it's never gonna be easy. But that enduring through it is like, yeah, there's some grieving. These walls have been torn down, and it's appropriate to grieve some of the things we've lost. But the joy of the Lord is more than the strength that we need to build back the walls. And this is like a central truth of the gospel. Maybe the central truth of the gospel is dead things can be made alive. Right? Dead things can be made to live. That's the gospel. And like the world is being redeemed. Send into the world, Christ is gonna redeem it. He's gonna dwell here with us. Right? He's going to restore it. All the sad things are going to be undone, right? The dry bones are going to be filled with life, right? It's like a beautiful story. The joy of the Lord in the midst of grief. You've got some Christians who we probably as a church don't do grief enough and don't do lament, but some Christians really want to live in lament, and it's like, yeah, but it's like the beauty of the gospel is it's really whole. It's like similar as again, Lord of the Rings is so good because it's like, it's not cheap. It's not like, oh, now we win and everything's just happy. There's scars in the Shire. Anyone else? Move on to question 2. All right. This one may hit closer to home or be a little harder. Can music and arts programs distract, obscure, or impede the mission? And if so, how?
yes.
Yes.
How quick did you answer yes?
How? Well, I'll keep it brief, but Jesus is supposed to be the center of it all. I think there was this great picture that we accidentally had at CMI this past year. Our focus was supposed to be only Jesus over Resonate and CMI, but as the band got larger and larger, the Jesus that was at the back of the stage just kept on disappearing into the back. And
Some bad graphic design.
bad graphic design, but I think whoever pointed that out to me, I'm like, oh,
Some of my old friends in here will
Holy
remember
Spirit, what are you doing?
Toilet Bowl Centralicity. Anyone remember Toilet Bowl Centralicity?
I'm too young for
Yeah.
that.
Anyway. Yeah.
We just have a kind of a best practice over at the Washtenaw County Core where sometimes it's easy to get a little bummed out over something not going super well in, like, let's say a performance or praise
Yeah.
band, whatever it is. And so there's this little saying that gets passed around that it's the purpose, not the performance, right? If we let our eyes get taken off of glorifying God in anything that we do, then in essence, we've lost, kind of lost the sense of mission.
Are you worshiping the band or is it Jesus? Are you worshiping the band or Jesus? You should
I think we got you.
Yeah.
Good point. We'll cut the melody off there. But yeah. Yeah. Sometimes. Any other ways?
With the praise band, or the
Uh,
praise band. It's just too loud, I can't hear myself
Yep.
singing.
I always thought it was funny. Both of them are true. Well, yeah, I talk about this with my youth, with my music leader training group with my Asper students all the time. I always tell them, like, you're not leading the ensemble if you're overwhelming them. Like, if they can't be, if they can never hear themselves sing, you're not leading them in worship.
That's just Major Scott too high on the.
Yeah. I always think it's funny though. There's some people. There's some people that will.
I didn't say which one.
There's some people that will complain about how loud a praise band is, like a brass band doesn't exist.
Grandpa. Oh.
They're like, oh, praise band. So I'm like, have you heard how loud that band is?
Trust me, Rockford, Sunday morning, the day I was
Yeah.
leading, I couldn't even hear myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a if you go to like at Asbury, we've got a big organ in our chapel, and some of the folks when I was a student, again, I was young when the worship wars were going on, and it was funny to me that some of the organ folks would be so upset about how loud the praise band is. I'm like, have you heard the organ? And when they pull out literally all the stops, I'm like, all right, but yeah. So sometimes we just like we get in the way, we can get in the way.
I think growing up for me, being from not a huge core with a band, my parents always came from the small core. And growing up, for me, it was, if you're not the four, you're nothing. If you're not from the four core.
Okay.
And each division had their four core. And if you weren't from those four, when it came to music camp or CMI or
Yeah.
something, you were just kind of cast aside. So I think, can music arts program distract, obscure, or impede the mission? If so, it starts messing with your own mind, like, why do I want to do this anymore if I can't be like Flint, Dearborn, Port Huron?
Yeah. So I good to remind, I think all those are really good. And I spent some time with my parents' officers at some small corps, and I feel that, like my time at Royal Oak was like the exception to the rule. The Royal Oak Display is a really good program. It was like, I remember going out to CMI from the St. Louis Temple Corps. You know, it was like just my horn didn't look as nice. I felt like I was on the outside looking in, like I felt it. Yeah. And sometimes it has something to do. I mean, I had some cartoon bullies from the Norwich Corps when I was a kid. Like literally, it was just like cartoonish. Like, you're nothing. You're from the Andersonville Corps. Like, but generally that's not the case. I was like a 9-year-old. I don't judge them. He's now my brother, my cousin-in-law. A particular Salvation Army story. This bit of, like, usually it wasn't actually the people in those corps that were making me feel bad. It was just my inadequacy and my feelings of inferiority or whatever. It wasn't like, usually they were like entirely supportive of me. But I watched too many American movies as a kid. I wanted there to be a bully. I wanted to be Hoosiers. I wanted to be the little school. So I sometimes would invent cartoon villains of these bigger corps. And they weren't really villains. That fit my stereotype, and that gave me the motivation to practice harder. I'm like, I'm gonna show those kids from Norwich what's what. That's pretty funny. It's a little point about sin. All sin is perversion of something good. Right? So, like this deviation of and that's not just music and arts, but anything good can be worshipped, become a sin unto itself. A really great book, C.S. Lewis, The Four Loves. Maybe it's formational to my understanding of the world and sin as any book. I've read, like, just really looks at the 4 Greek words for love and just thinks about how everything and all the worst evils of the world are just perversions of these things that God created for our benefit. And when we make them gods unto themselves, they distract us. They can, all good things. So none of that it distracts, obscures, shouldn't suggest to it that it's bad, but that it can be perverted. And that's the nature of all things. Like, you can have too much of all good things. So just as a little cautious. All right, what are attributes of a healthy congregation and a healthy music and arts program? So what are some attributes?
I'd say camaraderie and fellowship, like the kind
Camaraderie,
of deep
awesome.
interconnectedness.
Yeah. And particularly when that doesn't separate the music groups from the congregation.
Yeah.
And that's shared. Yeah. I think we all can imagine, like, I've seen, like, you know, a Salvation Army that's like all band and no congregation. So, yeah. What else? What are some other attributes?
I think when the music and the arts make what is being spoken or taught in the core come alive.
Yeah. When it's just like kind of what you're saying about sharing the gospel, like when it just like gives sound or gives voice to what's going on. Yes, awesome. Anybody else?
I always get a great feeling when I see kids engaged with the dog.
Oh, this is magic. It's magic in the world. Like what an like. I tell people, man, and it's not. It's intergenerational. It's interracial. Like when I show people just pictures of a Salvation Army band, like our band at our core, which is people of all ages and all races and backgrounds just sitting next to each other and coming together to do one thing. There's like what experiences in the world are like that? Like literally, what experiences in the world? And in a disconnected and separated world when everyone's lonely and isolated on their phones, what an unimaginable gift it is that we're doing something physical and real, intergenerationally, by crossing class. I don't know if you're aware of the circumstances in our country right now, but people don't talk across boundary lines. But you know where they do? In a core music ensemble. Like, that's really remarkable. That's so beautiful. Anybody else? There's one, the one I expected to come first hasn't come yet. No, there's all right. Doug, you got it?
I don't know. What's big in our core are small groups.
Awesome. It's not the one I was thinking, but it's a really good one.
Where it's like there are small groups throughout the week,
Yeah.
and it's getting in His Word.
Mm.
The more you're in His Word, the more playing in the band and singing the songs and all these other programs start to grow and flourish. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's all for a reason.
Yeah, and the small groups, like in some ways, before small groups were popular, the Salvation Army music and arts groups were the only small groups we had.
Right.
They're like doing it. Addington, was that a hand?
I think knowing the needs of the people is extremely important so
Yeah.
that we're not disconnected. Once I was preaching about 30 years ago, and I asked the bandmaster, could we have Finlandia because it was related to the theme of my sermon. He said it was too slow, so we didn't play Finlandia as the opening song because it was that was another side. We need to make sure that we know what the needs of the people are, so they come and they have their needs met.
Yeah. That's true. It's like in a band.
Nice to know who you are.
In a band, like you've got to know people. Like you have to be known. You have to know what your band can do and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. As a leader in a band, you have to know what they need from you. The same thing's true in a congregation. Like to be known, to be heard. Like we need congregations where people feel heard. And in a band, like you got to be heard, or else the group, no parts get left out. What else? There's still the one that usually this is the first one everyone always says.
Leading people to Jesus?
Nope.
Oh, come on.
Shared
No.
objectives?
Nope. That's good.
Communal worship?
No.
Corporate? No, that's.
Faithfulness.
Oh, okay.
Faithfulness, like commitment, reliability, like these ones. That's just an attribute of a healthy music and arts program and a healthy congregation. It's like I'm gonna be there. gonna show up. You can't have a functional arts group if people don't show up. And you can't have a body of Christ when the members aren't present. Like if we're gonna be the body, we gotta be the body, we gotta be there. And those are two things that are like really, I think really connected. Any others? But usually that's the first one everyone says. It's always like faithfulness, faithfulness. You guys, maybe the place where I had the highest expectation of faithfulness, you guys here, in the Great Lakes Division. All right. So here's one thing I think we need to do with our groups to kind of accomplish the mission of the Army. Is one, we need to like really I mentioned this earlier, not to think about them just as avenues of service to others or just for ourselves. We don't, there's an advertising campaign that's gone on recently, like it's not a campaign, it's like memes that get sent around that drive me mad. Have you seen it? It's one where it's like, if you want to have this, and there'll be a picture of like a symphony orchestra, you gotta have this.
Yeah.
And then have kids. I'm like,
It's all over teacher talk.
I hate it. It's like it's suggesting that the kids thing or that beginner thing isn't good on its own merit. Like it's only good as a vehicle to this bigger thing. And so sometimes I think we end up doing service like for the youth band so that our adult band can be better, or so that, or we're doing service to the community, and where it's like we're serving ourselves. But to build them as vehicles, like as I mentioned, like drawing people into the thing. We're not inviting you to the band so that you can do something for us. We want to draw you as not just something that an avenue of service, but a vehicle for service. A vehicle for We're not inviting you, like it's not a unidirectional mission where I'm doing service to you. We're inviting you along to join us. And this is actually the best metaphor is the Salvation Army. When the Salvation Army was at its most successful, if you want to use that term, it's a kind of tricky phrase to get into, is the Salvation Army used to imagine itself and its origins as coming alongside man. And the images would be coming alongside our brother, like reaching from the ship into the water and pulling someone out so that they can reach into the water and help pull someone else out. And there's like a frustration, it actually happens in the early 1950s, is there's a change in the American social work principles and ideals, academics, that came out with this idea that we need more distance. At the same time that people stopped like having mothers hold babies when they're born, like there's a time in the 1940s and 50s where if you had a baby, they'd take the baby away and they'd put it into a sterile environment, and then you'd look at your baby through like a little plastic box. It's like we wanted to separate everything out. And it's actually a phrase that many of us probably love that I've kind of come to dislike a little bit, which is at the same time, we started professionalizing Salvation Army service. And so we started professionalizing it, and so we started talking about clients, and then this slogan came around, which I loved for my whole life until I thought about it really deeply, which is heart to God and hand to man, which places the Salvationist on a central point, like reaching from God to man, and not like brother and brother walking beside each other, right? In which is like we're providing this service to you, we're doing a service to you, became the way we started talking about our rehabilitation centers and other things, as opposed to being like, we're stepping down in the gutter with you and we're walking together, brothers. And so you had older terms like somebody's brother was an old slogan of the Salvation Army, looking at poor people and saying, that's someone's brother, that's like someone's son, and we're stepping beside them. And this is, I think, the most transformative imagery of the Salvation Army, is that everyone and everything can be transformed. That the brothel can become a church. That the drinking song can become worship. That a person who is a sinner can be a saint. Like everything can be redeemed. So we're not just doing service to someone for the good of society, but we're coming along and inviting them. And so if we build our programs as vehicles for service, like that, it's a bigger vision of it. So when you have a kids program, you have your adult band at your core, what is the avenue that you have for sharing the gospel? It can't just, I don't think it's a big enough vision to be like, we support worship on Sunday morning. I think we have to have some bigger vision for how are we engaging our community with the good news of the gospel. Like in the same things with kids, like the kids can't just be playing for us on Sunday mornings. It's gotta be like, get the vision of the gospel. Let's get out to your neighborhood. Let's get out somewhere. Let's go play someplace. And even if it, like, the easiest one's the nursing home. Like just getting out and being like, at the Salvation Army, we're doing this thing which is taking the gospel to the world. And if you're coming to be in our program, that's not the taking it out. It's like you're joining us in taking it out to the world. I think that's a more appealing and like I think it gives us a reason to exist that's more meaningful. Harold, this was for you. You're already on it. Multi-generational community. Think about it from the outset. The world needs this. It's a rare and unusual thing in the history of the world, what we've done in the last 130, 145, 50 years, post-Civil War in America, of like really separating people by generations. Like music education for the history of the world was an adult with a kid making music together. Someone who could play, playing with someone who couldn't play until they could. Like it's a much harder thing to stick a bunch of people in a room and have one adult teach 40 children. And like our world is in desperate need of intergenerational communities. I don't know if your grandparents or your parents are like my parents. I've been doing a lot of reading on technology and what recently, just because being a college professor. You know, Addington knows this world. Like how, first thing I do if a kid's struggling in class, the first thing I ask them is their screen time, and it's just horrifying and shocking. And most of my students who are struggling in class are on their phones more than 12 hours a day. And like, if you look at your screen time, they'll probably be a little bit more horrified than you recognize or expect. And there's two generations of people that are particularly plagued by self-limitation. It's our young people and it's senior citizens. And like, it's like, how many of us at Christmas around our elderly family and they're just like in a room by themselves, scrolling through videos on the phone. And like they're disconnected. And like we need connected people. And the magic of like people your kids' age playing people your dad's age. And in a band doing something together is such an unimaginable gift. And even if we're starting something new, we need to build for that. It's a good thing that's happening already, but like just right from the get-go, like you need adults playing with the kids. The kids aren't gonna get good if they can't hear someone playing good next to them. Like the adults in our groups, the adults in our communities need to be helping kids. Like we need to be multi-generational. And the next one is intentional discipleship. I have a theory that we make a cheap excuse that Salvation Army music is discipling. If we don't intend it to be, it very rarely is. Like the songs, our music, and our repertoire of music is an unimaginable gift that no one could have planned from the outset like it has. The ability of Salvation Army music to present the gospel in deep, theologically rich ways that connect so profoundly. If we don't declare them in words, if we're just playing those pieces, it's just music, right? If we don't know what those words mean, then we're struggling. Last one, accountability and faithfulness. So intentionally from the get-go, this is one that I had to learn the hard way. Is like I was so eager to have so many kids in my program, I wouldn't hold them accountable. And I did a disservice to lots of folks by letting them stay in my programs and never teaching them that accountability was required. And so right from the get-go, accountability and faithfulness is an explicit goal and end of what we're building. If you're gonna do this, we come every week. There's no missing. Like this is like, we're gonna be there because we need each other. Like the same true for our congregation. Like church service is not I come so I can get something. That's a mega church and I don't think it's a particularly healthy model. I come to church, I get a good message, I receive some service rendered unto me, and then I go out and I live my best life for Jesus. No. Church is embodying Christ. And I even have started saying this more. Like I used to say, like, we come to church to worship. And I think that's a good statement. I think it's pretty good. Some people would say we come to church to learn about Jesus. I think that's pretty poor as an image for what we're actually doing in church. We're not just learning about Jesus. We can learn about Jesus on your phone. You can learn about Jesus just by yourself. That's not what we're going to church for. And I honestly, I've come to think, I don't even think it's we're coming to church to just worship Jesus. We're coming to church to embody Christ. Like we are the body. When we sing and our voices are united, we are the voice of Christ. When we read scripture aloud to each other, we're speaking Christ's words to the body. We edify each other. And all of that is, I can get into theological rigmarole about like, that is worship. Worship is much more profound than just singing some songs on a Sunday morning together. It's placing ourselves in right relationship to God. But the relationship that he chooses for us is as his body. He is our head, bound together tightly with other parts of the body. So when we come together, and I think our ensembles are such a good metaphor and parable of the body. I need you. And we each need to do our role. Not everyone's a solo cornet player. Like, and we shouldn't shame the solo cornet player for being really good. The principal cornet player can like really carry us. Praise the Lord. You also need the second cornet player, right? We need each other. We each have our distinct roles. We don't know why God gave some of us 3 talents and some of us 2 talents and some of us 1 talent. But the point is, we don't bury them in the ground, but we invest them. We build each other up. All right. So we want to do that intentionally. So let's think a little bit about service. We talked about this already. Omnidirectional instead of unidirectional. Like, if you can't imagine how the people you're bringing in can serve you and can also serve the world, a central premise of the Salvation Army is that everyone can serve God and can serve God well. Think about Gollum, right? Right? He had a role to play, a vital role to play in saving Middle Earth, and the whole world cast him aside, except for pity and love of Gandalf and of Frodo, and at the very end, the person who hated him the most, Samwise, right? Shows a bit of pity, a bit of love, and a little pathos, a little love for those who are rejected and cast aside. We can all serve God, we can all serve God well. And right from the beginning, invite people to join, don't invite people to receive. I think that's cheap. All right. The mission is shared, but cultivate a distinct and vital role for your groups in carrying it out. So the mission of the Salvation Army is the mission of the Salvation Army. We're a part of that. But what can your group do to be a part of it, to really do it? Like, what's the mission of your group? Like, what are we going to do? And don't hold yourself burdened by what some other group does or what somebody else does. But how do we get out and share it? How do we get out and say it? It's not enough. And again, historically, a brass band doesn't make any sense in a building. A brass band is like built for the outdoors. It's built for outside. It is not the ideal decibel level group to be in a small chapel to lead people in worship. So let us get out. Let's get out and find a way to have some mission for our group that keeps us involved. And you will find that when your group has a mission, like my group at Asbury, if we didn't have a trip every fall, I wouldn't have a band. Not because they want to go on the trip, but like, how are we going to keep coming to rehearsal each week if we don't have something we're looking forward to? And frankly, we couldn't have played Pastoral Symphony if there wasn't, like, we're playing this in 2 weeks in front of people. You know, it's like, you know what, like our groups can't get better if people don't practice, but people don't practice if there's no need to practice, right? If the Five Leg Silver Band wasn't going to NABA, it wouldn't be as good, right? If you didn't have something you were getting ready for, like, there's got to be something. And so, like, get some mission, something with your group. Like, what are we doing? How are we carrying out this mission? And like, even right from the beginning with kids, when I bring kids into our program, like, we're getting out early. We're getting out before we're any good. We're hopping over to the shelter. And we're going to play hot cross buns the moment we can play hot cross buns, because that's what a Salvation Army band does. Like, we're sharing the good news, right? The good news of hot cross buns.
Amen.
All right, here we go. We know this. Unhealthy communities are siloed and fragmented. Resilient communities are robustly interconnected. We had an unimaginably bad officer sent to our Corps 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. They had been in the ARC for 20 years, and I think there's just some like real darkness happened in their life. And if you know anything about the Salvation Army, sometimes the ARCs are like a little world unto themselves. And this couple, like, they just had they didn't, I mean, they were at our Corps for 3 months, and only on one Sunday did they even speak the name of Jesus. We had sermons about witches, we had sermons about school counselors wanting to change the genders of our students, we had sermons about all sorts of wild stuff. But the gospel wasn't preached, and it was dark. But we had a resilient, interconnected web of faithful soldiers. It was the hardest, I'm the Corps Sergeant Major at our Corps, it's the hardest 3 months of my life, and I had to sit in an office and have a 6-hour meeting with an officer who told me that Christ was not winning, and that Satan was winning, and that people in the world were unredeemable, and that they were out to get us. Like, this is not the gospel that we believe. But you know what, like, the Holy Spirit did is, like, our Corps just got closer and tighter, and like, people who had started being like politicized on multiple ends of the political spectrum and seeing the world through their lenses realized, and like came closer to Jesus. It became a resilient community in our Corps at the end of it. Like, I mean, it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't gone in 3 months. it's a special kind of bad to have an appointment and get pulled out 3 months.
Mhm.
But like that was a rigorous community that was connected, and it couldn't have happened if it had just been me. But it was that Dave Reitmeyer, who was a mentor of mine and a faithful older salvationist, like came on board and came alongside. And it was that young. It was like it just became this like this web of people that were there for each other that made it rigorous. And it's like in these moments that are horrible, we realize that God is exactly as He promises to be. That in the midst of these great storms, like He's faithful, and that He works all things for His good. It's like you say it, and then like we know this in our lives, right? There have been moments that have been unimaginably challenging, and it's like we never want to go through them again. But somehow God works good in the midst of these storms, right? And multi-generational communities make that so much more robust and manageable. Arts are an organic way, we've already talked about that. Expanding our reach and our impact. Particularly some old folks, talking about old folks on their phones. You might have some seniors in your church who used to play. I mean, it's a big movement around the world, these golden ager bands around the country. There's people wanting and needing to connect. And it may not make your band better, but it might make it more good. If you thinking about what good means, not just right. There might be some having a seniors band. There's these things. I'm sad that we've gotten rid of the term League of Mercy because it's the coolest term of any group in the Salvation Army. It sounds like a heroes group, the League of Mercy. But just to go and do things that are just that we have no benefit, to go and teach seniors to play at a retirement village. You're not going to get a return on that investment probably.
You can teach Gene.
Right? But what good that would be for just for people that are broken and disconnected. And take your kids. You want your kids to get better at playing? Have them teach a senior citizen to play. My daughter's gotten so much better on her cornet since she's been teaching her friends to play. They'll have to teach someone. So anyway, it's not just for kids. It's not just for adults. It's for the body. Right? And we are the body of Christ. And our kids are not the future body of Christ. And our senior citizens are not the dying body of Christ. We are the body of Christ. And like the vision in Daniel, it's growing, it's expanding, it's never going to end. And when we make, I think this all the time, when we play hymns, particularly I play hymns to people in our church who died, that meant a lot to them. And playing that music just draws them back to my mind. I'm just reminded, remember that God exists outside of time. And eternity exists outside of time. It's not just a time that never ends. It's outside of time. And when we sing the faithful hymns of the church, I think it was every year we sing O Come, O Come Emmanuel, which is pretty much the oldest hymn that we sing the same melody to. We sing that song, we're joining thousands, centuries of Christians calling for Christ to come. Right? And we join with them in the past. We join the everlasting song. And it's so beautiful, right? The body, just have a big vision for the body of Christ. I think is really vibrant to us. All right, intentional discipleship. Dallas Willard says discipleship is the intentional, notice the word intentional, personal, loving imitation of Jesus for the joy of knowing Him and making Him known. Sometimes discipleship happens without us knowing it, but very rarely. Discipleship is the intentional, personal, loving imitation of Jesus. And when we do that together in a community, you can't disciple on your own. You can't be discipled on your own. And no one is a discipler and not a disciple. And no one is a disciple and not a discipler. It's this interconnected web of us intentionally imitating Jesus and following Jesus together. Our vision statement for our core is we are a church following Jesus. Rooted in love, growing in grace, and serving with compassion. It's what we do together, and it's got to be intentional. If you don't have a plan, if you're not intentionally discipling in your rehearsal, it might just be a rehearsal.
There's a part of the screen that I can't see there. What's the full name of the text that's from?
The Divine Conspiracy.
Conspiracy. Sweet, thank you.
Yeah. Dallas Willard is just a great author. I think did he just die? I don't want to kill him early. But he's older, and he's great. Among a few authors, you see those great Richard Foster and Dallas Willard discussion of just the practices of a Christian life have been very formative for me in my life. Discipleship's not about doctrines, it's not about uniforms.
2015.
He died, yeah, that's all.
R.I.P.
It's about following Jesus intentionally and making those groups. Again, this idea of it being in community with others. And I don't think like just the natural venue and vehicle for discipleship that arts groups are is amazing. But we've got to take advantage of it. And it's, again, we've got to like put work to it. And I'll say this, like we have done a lot of drawing people into the Army through our core band. Like so our core band, we've probably had over the last 20 years, probably 15 or 20 non-Salvationists join up and join music programs, and join the Salvation Army because of our music program, because of inviting people in. At one point though, I realized as the leader at the beginning of this, there are some people I was so happy to have them come in that I didn't bring myself to ask them questions that the Holy Spirit was leading me to ask. So in our faith tradition, we talk about this as the term prevenient grace, the grace of the Holy Spirit that goes out before us, right? And we believe that this grace is available to the whole world. Everyone in the world that God is calling, God wants all of them to be known, to come to Him, to be redeemed, and to be in a faithful, loving relationship. It's literally why we exist. And so the Holy Spirit's out there, and that's how like good things happen to folks, and they experience a bit of God's love through the grace of the Holy Spirit that's reaching out to them. And our job as Christians is to put word to the things that they're experiencing, right? And like we believe that the Holy Spirit's gone in advance, and that when these people come, like they're waiting, like. You know, like St. Francis is supposed to have said, you know, I'll preach the gospel at all times and when necessary use words. There's always a necessary point to use words. And we all know some people who don't have the gift of recognizing when that time is and just like say things before the moment, like seem completely insensitive to that. But some of us are afraid that there's moments where we need to put word to it. And I realized I was guilty of this. I was so happy that they're coming and playing in the band and making them better. And I realized that there's a point where I'm like, God is calling me to say something. Someone had to say it. And this again, remember, like I don't want to get left behind on the chance to participate in the redemptive plan. Sometimes God's plan for Chase is salvation. Like He didn't need me. Someone else. Like don't think that God. Someone else. God. If I had failed, God wasn't going to like just let Chase go. Right? But He invited me to participate. And like, I want to cultivate that bit of faithfulness, of saying like, hey, all right, you don't need to ask someone like, hey, you want to come meet Jesus, play in our band, become a soldier? That's not a good first step, right? Like, hey, you want to come? Like, we need a trombone player this Sunday. Could you come and play with us? Great. Hey, you know we've got these kids programs. You want to come? I got a kid. Like, if you could sit in the youth band and play trombone with this kid, it'd be super helpful. All right, hey, come this next week. Well, all that's good. Maybe they start showing up more often. At some point, you need to be praying. Like, when's the moment where I say? You've been coming to church for a while. Like, maybe it's time for you to be a part. You know, we've got soldiership classes. Like sometimes we have not because we ask not. And sometimes they're just waiting for us to ask. And if we don't like intentionally take those steps, right? And again, intentional discipleship, it's a passage and it's a journey. It's like we don't need people to give up their whole life of sin and turn everything away and start wearing a uniform every Sunday before they can join up. It's like a little baby step. Come once. Hey, come a little further. And taking those steps of discipleship. And so too it is with us who have been faithful Christians for a long time. There are some times in my life I've been dying. I've been literally dying for someone to ask me, what's wrong with my life? Like there's periods in my life when I've like been veering off the path. And you know, no one knows it because I know what's right and wrong, but like I know I'm living a sinful life, and I think the people around me might notice it too, but they're afraid to say it. And there's sometimes I'm afraid to say it to some of my friends. I'm almost too good of friends to ask him what his faith's like. Or to ask him how their marriage is right now. Like, sometimes we're afraid to say it. This is the richness of a small group, where you really know each other and you kind of intentionally cultivate asking those hard questions. But like, we've got to be intentional. Like, we've got to be intentional about that if we really want to be really imitators of Jesus, right? So we can build that into our groups. Are you carving out time for prayer? Not just a cheap, quick prayer. Not that every rehearsal needs a deep, robust prayer time. Sometimes we got work to do. We just got to pray. We need to get on with it, right? But are we carving out time at some point for people to pray meaningfully with each other and for each other's concerns? Are we carving out time for people to testify? I won't get, I think it's interesting. I did a really, what I think is an interesting oral history project on the open air and a research project on the open air. And I came to like a thesis, like the open air was never really successful as far as drawing people into our services. Even at the beginning, the success rate of like people actually coming back and joining the Salvation Army or getting saved at open airs was always super low. But our retention rate among young people like just plummeted the moment we stopped doing open airs. Because what happened in an open air is we made people declare their faith and testify out loud. And I don't think open airs are the thing. I don't think we necessarily need to do that. But are you carving time for people to stand up and testify to transformative change in their life? Because throughout the history of the church, every revival and every big movement is never because of a great preacher. It's never because of some magical new app or something. It's always that people confess sin, people testify, and people sing and read scripture aloud. These four things are present in every large movement of the Holy Spirit. So like, are we carving out time? Like, when was the last time you declared out loud what Christ has done for you? Like, we need that. Our people need that, and the people in our groups need that. We need to cultivate, even if it's experiences in rehearsal, like, we need to do those things. That's what intentional, I think, discipleship looks like, I think. Okay, we've talked about a bunch of this already. We'll skip through this pretty quickly. We recognize the commitment, resilience, and buy-in that these groups can have, and these can help us grow healthy churches. We need people just like this. Like, paint the story. Think about, like, so the Flint Citadel Corps. It's Flint Citadel, right? Yeah. I've got some of your epaulets still in my house that Dan gave me 30 years ago. Anyway, you guys still got been 25 of faithful core after all those years. Was it easy? Like, if you talk to the people at your church, are there some like really difficult seasons? But there has to have been, right? There are these difficult seasons. So when we experience some difficult seasons, one of the things that's always the case is like a durable congregation who, like Frodo and Samwise, just kept stepping when all hope seemed lost, just to keep stepping, walking into valleys of dry bones, and just going, you know what? It feels dead. It feels like there's no chance. We should go back. One quick story. This is about an open air. I don't mean to get on open air so much. We have a guy at our court, Ed McKinley. Does anyone know Ed McKinley? Ed McKinley, man, like what a gift. He's the one of the most distinct humans I've ever met. He was a graduate student at Berkeley, just studying history. And he got saved, one of the few people you'll meet in your life who got saved at an open air meeting. Well, he followed an open air. He's a historian, he's just like super distinct, and it's like his elbows are shouldered to his side, and he's always talking with his hands like this. It's just great. And he's just a history major, like, and he just sees the Salvation Army band out doing this open air. And he's like, ooh, the Victorian reenactment. And he follows them back, and he goes back to the church. And he's like, his terrible message, he's like, he doesn't remember much of the message, but it's the first time during the altar call he heard it just get clear and succinct, like, Jesus died for your sins, and he wants to save you. And it's just like he believed it, and he knew it, and he went forward, and he's saved. But the beautiful thing with the story is the bandmaster was a really old bandmaster who had been, they'd been trying to cancel the open air for a couple of years, and he just pushed them on. And the officers came to him, and the band came to him, and they would make this, said, this is our last open air. He said, one more. Just one more. Is that next open air that Ed comes. And here's the thing I like to imagine about that. It's like, imagine how much that guy prayed that week. You know, like, it's just the faithfulness of that one more week. And they kept doing them for a while after that, because it's like everyone's so shocked. It's like, that guy came back. Like, what a gift, that sort of faithfulness rooted in prayer, and like another step in a dry season. Just one more step. And I thought about that as I was reading about Frodo and Samwise to my daughters, like that one more step. Like, we're not going to get there, but we can take another step, right? And we need congregations that can be durable in those difficult seasons. And ensembles are such a great way to do that. mention this, set standards early and often. Anyone who's ever led a good group will tell you, like, take attendance. I say attendance out loud each week in my band, and I acknowledge out loud people who aren't there, who've told me they're not going to be there. I'm subconsciously letting everyone know that seat's empty, but there's a reason, and they communicated with me. If you're going to be late, you're going to be missing, you've got to do that. Like, if you have low standards, like, the standards will be low. Like, people will take advantage of low standards. If you don't suggest that it's important that everyone's there, people won't show up. From the very beginning with kids, acknowledge it. Say it out loud. It's like, I always started with Karen, like, Eric's not here. Where's Eric? Does anyone know about Eric? Can someone text Eric and see if he's okay? I don't say, I usually doubt. I don't really think they're probably hurting, but I always go there. I'm like, just give him the benefit of the doubt. Check on Eric. Someone check on Eric. Is he okay? And anyway, establish those things early, and those are going to be key successes. I think developing some attributes of our ensembles that also match our congregations. If someone's not at your church, they don't show up on Sunday, no one reaches out to them. And they don't show up the next Sunday, and no one reaches out to them. They don't show up the next Sunday, and no one reaches out to them. They might be going through some awful stuff, and you don't know it, and they may not show up. Like, that's not about the body. Like, if something's hurting the body, we got to know about it. There's a terrible thing I read. There's other church apps that big churches use now that will track. Like, they want you to read the Bible through their church app. So then they'll know, and they'll send little flags to the pastoral team. They even have automated messages. People don't show up enough times, and they get an email, like an automatically generated pre-written email from the church, like checking in. And it's just like, what a terrible, like, what a sad thing. And it's trying to imitate this thing that is distinctly human and important, which is actually knowing the person that you're with. And again, a band, any arts group is so vital that you know very clearly when your bass trombone's going. Right? You know it. You know it.
Feel it.
And our churches ought to be the same way. Like, we're not the body. Right? I tell it to the kids in my middle school, Sunday school class, when they're gone a week, they're here, I'm like, we weren't the body last week. Like, we missed you. Like, we need you. Not because you have to hear about this. Like, you can learn about Jesus on a podcast. You can learn about Jesus someplace else.